To be honest, like I didn't know, okay, getting into high finance from SFU will be that challenging, like before I got into it, because like I had no clue about capital markets. But I think it was good for me because if I had knew, like, oh, it's like almost impossible to get from non-target school, I would have not like even tried this path, right?
Hey everyone, welcome to the next episode of Friday with Friends. Today I'm here with a new friend, Atharva, and he went to SFU and he's had so many equity research internships, and now he's full time at TD Securities. I have yet to have anyone from SFU. I've yet to have anyone in research. So we're in for a treat today. Atharva, first question I always ask everyone, can you first share a bit about your upbringing, high school experience, and career interests at the time?
Yeah, great. But thanks for this great introduction. And so, yeah, I was born and raised in India until like I was in India till 17. Then I moved to Canada for my undergrad. And before that, I had no idea about capital markets or anything. I was very much into sports, and in India, I think you can guess the sport, which was cricket. I think till age of 15 or 16, I thought, I'll be playing for the national for our national team for India. But for my own good, I realized I'm not made out for that, and I probably need to start focusing more on studies. And I always wanted to see, like go outside, explore a bit. So I was exploring, first I came across, you know, going to Australia for my undergrad, and then eventually ended up, looking at Vancouver as a city where I can stay. And so then I went and decided to go into SFU.
What university did you apply for and what programs? Can you recall the application and the day you were accepted?
Yeah, no, so I think there were a couple of universities in Australia which I applied first. I got accepted into both of them. I actually don't recall the names on top of my head, but one was in Sydney, and the other one was in Melbourne. And so I got accepted in both of them, but my family kind of told me to go to like Canada because they can easily visit me over here as they frequently go to US. So that was one of the reasons why I actually moved to Vancouver. Otherwise, I had no idea about any of the schools in uh, Canada. And if I knew I want to go into capital markets and want to go to Canada, I think I would be applying somewhere else like Western Queens or UBC. But the only two schools which I knew was like UBC, SFU. And I think just from the fees perspective, I think SFU was much better. So that was one of the reasons like why I chose SFU.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I mean, how are we supposed to know in high school that you want to do capital markets? So it kind of like, picking the school, uh, I think is kind of just, yeah, it can be based on fees, based on where you live, based on where you're comfortable. So I think a common theme on this channel is that you can still make it in capital markets, even if you go to like not a Ivy, not a Queens. Now, how is the adjustment from high school into university? Like you mentioned, you're from India. Like, how was that and being in Vancouver?
Yeah, it was. I won't say it wasn't challenging, but it was really interesting for me because the way I was in India, I was not like really into studies, right? Like I told, I was focusing very much into sports. So before school, after school, I used to practice. And so I was very much into it. Then coming over here, I knew I had to focus on studies. And so just, having that transition over time, like, okay, I need to put in more hours on doing reading or doing assignments and be in the bright side of, of my academic career. So that was one of the most challenging parts. And just from the place perspective, I didn't know anyone over here, right? I came to Vancouver, I had no family, no friends. I just knew a couple of other guys who I eventually like ended up being a roommate for the first time when I moved here. And so they were the only people I knew. So it was fun, at the same time challenging, figuring out how things work over here and just trying to make new friends. But I think if I had to do it over again, I'll probably do it. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Like it can be challenging, but you know what? I do it again. I recommend people do it. Like that's fun. How did you I guess, make friends. I get a lot of questions about like university students like, I just got dropped off at university. Like, how do I make friends? And most of them were born here. So how did you have to put yourself out there? Did you join clubs? Did you play sports?
Yeah, I think so. First, I was playing cricket, right? And there were few, like mostly those was like South Asian people, they were playing cricket. So I first like, okay, I will get into that group first, try to, get into, things in Canada and try to see, how things work. And they actually, I joined a club and they really helped me to just settle in, because they were not only like university students, they were actually people who have been staying here for last 40-50 years. And so they knew, like what are the challenges for, people who are coming from like India or some other country and they have no one, right? So they really helped me. So that was one. But then for making friends, I think it was most of the friends I made over here was when I got into the student run investment fund, because I think I found them like very like-minded and similar interests. So I think that was, I probably will speak more about it after, but that was one of the area, or one of the group where I made most of the friends. And till this date, they are the people who I'm most close with, and we hang out probably every weekend. There, some of them are in Toronto, so yeah.
Investment clubs or consulting clubs or sales clubs, whatever it is, it's a great place to not only advance your career and learn about timelines and interviews, but also like, yeah, the people are very similar to you. They're ambitious. They like similar things. And so it's a great place to start, especially if you're in first year and you don't really know how you're going to make friends. Question number 4, could you speak about your entire internship journey so far, and not just the internships you've done, but like the ones that you've applied for, prepping for them, any challenges you've encountered along the way?
So I think most of the internships I had was in research. There was only one internship before RBC I did was in like a startup firm. It was a cannabis startup firm. And so I first got into like that one that kind of helped me to get into RBC. But in terms of applying, I think, yeah, it was a lot of rejections, right? Like coming from a non-target school, it's just like really difficult. I also like I got to know about capital markets when I was in probably mid second year. So right, I didn't know, okay, before, okay, I was like, I want to get into capital markets, but not only I don't have any good internships, I didn't have like any of the internships. The only experience I had was, being a part of club or, doing a part-time job. So in starting it was a lot of rejections, but then fortunately, with the support of the alumni in our student investment fund, they really, kind of encouraged, me to keep on applying. And see, eventually I only need like one internship, to get the better one. So that kept me going. And so eventually I landed RBC, which was really fun to be part of. Like I got in for 4 months and they kept on extending my term. I was also learning a lot over there. So I was like, hey, yeah, research is something I want to do. So if they're extending it, why not, I keep on doing it. And both of the I worked in two different groups over there. Both of the analysts, both of the associates I worked under, they were really helpful. But at the end of 1 year I was not able to get the return, so that was also a bit challenging. And eventually I think the place I am at right now, I'm really happy, so I think it worked out for my own good. But I think the overall the intensive experience, I have no complaints, and learned a lot. If I look myself before internship and after internship, I think it was great. Like there's like huge difference.
Oh, I love that you shared that you discovered it later in the game, like in your second year, like midway through. And I know that's honestly very reasonable. But for capital markets, you have kids that know they want to do investment banking, that have memorized the 400 M&I guides before they may have even started university or in the first semester. So I love that you were still able to do it. And I love even more that you were able to do it with the backing of the alumni. Could you speak maybe about the importance of mentorship and having those upper year students to encourage you?
Oh, yes. I think one of the most important things I've learned over 5 or 6 years is, it's really important to have mentors in your life. Like, not only they kind of help you to get you a job, but it kind of helps you how you're as a person, right? I think I try to pick like mentors very carefully. And it's not only okay because I want this job, it's because more like, okay, I want to be someone like him, not only in job, but like overall life. And that has so far, I think, worked out really well for me. uh, I won't say there's only like one mentor for me, right? There are like tons, like 5 or 6 mentor, and I still like stay in touch with them. And I never really, just went to them to get a job. I was like, hey, I want to learn something about what you're doing, or I want to learn something about it, and that's how I got into touch with them. One of them actually became my best friend, so that was like a really fun part. And the others, I've been in touch with them like regularly even after I got the job. So I think having a mentor really helps you, not only in getting a job, but keeping you focused in you whatever you're doing, or keeping you encouraged like in your tough times.
Like getting the job is just the first part. When you are in the job, in any job, there are challenges. And to have someone that has gone through it, but also knowing how hard you work for it and that you are grateful, but it's a safe space to share your thoughts about these like high stress careers, and that's super important. And I love that one of them became your best friend, and I think that's very natural too, because you go through a lot together as mentor mentee, and it does work out that way sometimes. What are your thoughts on recruiting for high finance as a non-target versus target student? Are there like different approaches based on the school you go to?
I think definitely the it's like harder to, it's not impossible, right? But it's really harder to get into high finance if you're not going into any of the target school. Uh, but what I think really helps is being a part of something like investment club, right? I think that's one of the most common way I have seen people like students in non-target school, do to get into high finance. I think most or probably all of the people in SFU I know who are in high finance, they have been part of the club which I was part of, and that was one of the reasons I got into it as well. So I think one way is getting into investment club, and the other one is you have to do a lot of networking. Like you have to put out yourself in the market. Like people won't come to you. It's not like a target school, so you have to be in the market. You have to tell them why you're interested into it, what you're doing, what can you bring different. Yeah, you are not in the target school, but how can what can you provide so they don't care about you're not in the target school, I would say.
That's a great point about putting yourself in the market, because certain firms at target schools will come and educate you about ER. They will educate you about IB and S&T, and you think, oh, okay, that's interesting. Then you go talk to the recruiter and blah, 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 blah. But when you go to non-target school, I kind of like to describe it as like, you don't have the puzzle completed. You have to collect the pieces yourself. You have to figure it out yourself, and you have to, think, oh, this is where they recruit. Oh, these are the firms. Oh, these are the different, industries. And it's definitely, that's what you're saying. It's not impossible, but it's just a little bit of a harder, like unique path. And I think a way that you can mitigate that being a non-target, as you said, being in an investment fund, because guess who can help you put the puzzle together and find pieces? The people that have done it already from your school.
Exactly. And to be honest, like I didn't know, okay, getting into high finance from SFU will be that challenging, like before I got into it, because like I had no clue about capital markets. But I think it was good for me, because if I had knew, like, oh, it's like almost impossible to get from non-target school, I would have not like even tried this path, right? So I think back then I didn't know how competitive it will be, like coming from non-target. So it was good that I didn't know.
Yeah, no, like sometimes ignorance is bliss. And I agree. Being at degree, I had no idea until I actually already done it. When I got my first offer, I remember being like in the cohort, and I was like, oh, why are there no McMaster students here? And I was found out, oh, it's actually really difficult. And I think that's a good thing about being from a non-target and being able to break into these spaces, you can then mentor other students. And that's the most rewarding part.
Yeah, 100%. I think I'm still pretty early in my full-time career, but even like after getting internship, there are like first or second year students, who reach out to you and just, guiding them. That's like really helpful because previously people helped me. So it's now my duty to, help the people who are coming after me, right?
Why equity research and not IB or S&T? I feel like I always hear some kids trying to break into a bulge bracket IB, and maybe if they don't like the hours, they do S&T. But I have not really heard from students, oh, I really want to break into research.
Yeah, I think there are a few factors into it, and like coming back again, who were my mentors. So how I got like, so always like reading and all these things, right? And some like one of the guy who worked at RBC, he was in my cricket group, and he's like, hey, if you're interested into stock market and reading, you should try research. And he was doing a research internship at that time, so he guided me a bit in the starting, and after, so then I met like few other people, and they all were in research. Like I didn't really talk to people who were in IB, and then I was like, hey, yeah, this is what I really like. And why I really like is research. It's it's only two people teams, so most of the times, so you get like very broad exposure, right? You have to do everything from modeling to doing actual research to writing. And writing was like one of the part where I really like, because it helps me to think more clearly. And again, like just researching into companies, I thought, yeah, this is what I want to do. And people told me, you should explore other paths like IB or S&T. But at the same time, what I thought is, there will be always some like things, you might like better. But if you find something, which you're really enjoying, why you need to, change the path, like if you're learning over there, right? So I only like really applied to research internships like throughout. Probably I applied to like a buy side research internship. That's a different thing. But for the sell side, I think the only ones I really applied was the research internship. Probably one IB, but I never really focused on that, or never really networked for IB internship. And so I think, yeah, a few things, right? One is like all my mentors, or most of my mentors, are in research, or they were in research, so that really guided me. And then the things what people actually do in research, that was really interesting for me. And the last part was, like one of the mentor really told me, don't just do IB because all of your other friends are doing it. It's like I found it challenging at first as well, because everyone is doing IB. I want to do it too, but he was like, don't do it. Like at the end of the day, if you don't like it, you're gonna hate your life. So just don't like do it because everyone else is doing it. And I was like, hey, yeah, I will just try research then.
I think I felt that too, like recruiting for S&T, and just all the buzz was about IB. And I was like, do I do IB even though I know I wouldn't like it? And at the end of the day, okay, it's cool. It's on your LinkedIn. It's cool that you make that LinkedIn announcement, but guess who has to work that IB job? It's you. And if you already know, like, you don't want to do it before recruiting, you really shouldn't be doing it.
Exactly right. And it looks good on your resume, but it's more about, after 10 years, where do you see yourself, and what job will help you the most, right? Like in terms of the skills you learn. So it's like for first 2 years, yeah, it will look in your resume, but hey, in the long run, in 10 years, like if you want to be somewhere where IB is not going to help you, then there's no point, being there. So, and
Yeah.
like nothing bad about IB. I think IB gives you like a great exposure to so many different things, and makes like great like finance people who go into like the IB has great exit, right? PE, hedge funds, or whatever you want to do. But I think what I want to do is like, I think ER is better suited for that.
Did you know much about financial markets prior to recruiting? How did you fill any knowledge gaps?
I think before recruiting, yes, I did. But the only reason I did was I got into the investment fund Beam, right? Over there, like we talked before, right? Like you have to put in all the pieces together, and SFU, without being part of that club, there's no one, who can help you to put all the pieces together. So like all the alumni kind of really prepared me, to like from 400 IB questions, to what you should expect in the interview or job, and how it's like working every day in financial markets. And then there's all the basic, right? Like how to look at the company, or what are the different methodologies about, like, so all the basic, yeah, I did know when interviewing for the RBC job. But that was only because I got into Beam, and I think so. I got into Beam around Jan or Feb, and I got recruited for RBC 6 months after that. So yeah, I think I had around 6 months to prepare for everything.
Okay, and you got into the investment club. Was it the end of your first year or January of your first year?
It was the end of second year, I think. So
Oh,
so it was like I told you, right? I didn't know much about, probably even after second year, probably. Yeah, I don't exactly remember, but it was like midway through my undergrad. I didn't know much about capital markets. I knew, like, about stock market, and I like to read about, few investors, but I never thought, it will be like really hard to get into this job, and you have to do so much of extracurricular activities to get into this job. So I never took, getting into that club really seriously before. And then once I realized, oh, I have to do this. So then I got after it, like, hey, I need to do this. Right?
that's kind of amazing that you joined and then 6 months later you landed ER. That's very impressive.
Yeah. And I think, at least for Beam, that because it's only a 2-year program, and SFU, that's the problem being non-target school. Most of the people who wants to get into capital markets, or they realize they want to get into capital markets, they don't realize until their second or third year, right? So most of the people, like, they have been like around, getting into Beam in their second year or third year, and there's like a very quick, timeline. You have to prepare for a recruiting in 6 months. And I think now with timeline getting like day by day, I saw a posting today, like for RBC, it was in 2025.
I saw that too.
And I was like, wow, it's like getting really difficult, for non-target schools. Like people don't know, like you have to start preparing basically from the high school to get into something like this.
Yeah, and I do have thoughts about that. I don't want to get into like too big of a tangent, but I think those accelerated timelines, they may be good for the bank for them recruiting the best students in their eyes. But I think when you do that, you do miss out on a lot of non-target students because, who are the students that know to recruit this far in advance, to recruit 1.5 years in advance? They're the students that go to IB and Queens, and perhaps they're the students whose parents or family friends work in these industries. Because if you're non-target, like for you, you came from India, how are you supposed to know?
Exactly, right. That's like I think I consider myself lucky, consider myself lucky in that way, that it was not this early. It was only like, if I want to do an internship like in summer of 23, I only need to start recruiting, mid 2022, or maybe after, little bit after that. Now it's like you have to recruit 2 years in advance, and that's like completely insane.
More ER specific question. You've worked in healthcare, paper, and diversified equity research. Could you briefly tell us about each sector and how they are similar and different in the ways that you research them?
Yeah, I think so. The key task, I think, remain very same, right? Which is uh, doing the modeling work, looking into the companies, then writing the notes during the earnings season, or for any other news, or for the initiation report, right? So those tasks, like at the high level, remains very same, right? But what happens is, for sectors like healthcare or diversified industrials, those companies are like input in that own sector. It's not like all the companies are same. Healthcare, one company might be, a biotech company. They don't even have a product, right? So they are in the clinical trials, but it's like a publicly traded company. So you have to do a research. So valuing that company or looking into that company is completely different than, looking into, for example, large pharmaceutical company, right? Where they have all those drugs, who they're selling, all of them like are matured, or everyone knows what the sales going to be in next year, or like you can easily estimate what's it's going to be. So that's like one. So healthcare, same with diversified industries, like there are some companies who are similar, but then there are like others, where you have to understand each company, you have to, do like a lot of work. You have to understand the industry behind it. You have to understand different competitors. But for the paper packaging, it was more of a commodity sector, right? So if you understand one company, it's easier to understand all the different companies, because everything, flows in the same way. Hey, yeah, they make wood. Uh, they don't much differentiate themselves, right? So they do everything in the same way. So it's easier to understand those companies. But again, then there's like commodity forecasting that is like more challenging. So I think why I really want to try these different sectors was like early in my career, I can like try to explore all these sectors, learn as much as I can, and then figure out, which is the best sector suited for me, or if I can be a generalist going forward, right? So yeah.
Question number 8. Why should students consider ER as a path in high finance? Just your personal opinion.
Yeah, I think people might disagree with it, but it's there are a few things. First of all, most of the people, when they take a sell side job, right, they're mostly in for the exit opportunities they get. I think if you are not sure what you want to do, like after 3 or 4 years after graduating, definitely I think IB is a better route, because you have a lot more options. Like you can go into private equity, or you can be in IB, or you can go into hedge fund or public equities, right? So there's no limit. But if you want to be in the public equities and want to eventually move to buy side, then I think ER is really well suited, because IB, you don't really, deal with stocks like public equities on day-to-day basis. So you're not in touch with market as much as like, an ER associate will be. So I think ER kind of prepares you very well, for how to, and not just analyze the company, but how to read the market, right? Like how people think about different stocks, and you get a lot of exposure just talking to all the clients, buy side clients, and also like the management teams. So I think if you want to do public equities and you want to be in the public equities, then I think buy side like equity research is a really good option. But if you are not sure and you want to be, hey, I want to still explore, then I think IB is a better one.
I know ER works closely with sales and trading. You haven't worked on the trading floor yourself, but I guess from what you know now, being full time in your role, what kind of exits do you think sales and trading has?
I think sales and trading also has like a good exit, right? You can go into buy side public equities, but I think it just gets more challenging, because in sales and trading, you don't really work with financial models, or you don't do very detailed analysis, right? Your job is to basically sell something to the clients, and what advantage the research provides is, if you want to go into buy side, is like you do a lot of work, right? You create an investment thesis, but you also do like a very deep work looking into the name. You create a model, so you have the technical ability, when exiting that job. I think as S&T, you can also do the same thing, but it's again like, it will be a bit tougher. If you want to move into any role that requires a good technical skills, right, like building a model or like analyzing a company in a really good way, then I think S&T kind of limits you on that side.
What does a slow day versus a busy day in ER look like? And I want it like the extreme, like extremely slow and extremely busy.
Yeah, I have seen both of them. So there are like most of the time the busy days are the ones during the earning season. I think, which people probably know, right? Like there will be 4 or 5 companies reporting in the same day. So what happens is like uh, on Toronto time, like companies will start reporting around 7 o'clock in the morning. So hey, the print comes out. You have to analyze the press release then you have to input the numbers in the model and quickly write a note about, what happened during the quarter, put it out in like 45 minutes, 1 hour. The quicker you get out the note, it's better, because the clients won't read all the bank's notes, right? There are like tons and tons like sell side coverage on a particular company. So they will read like the first two notes. So you have to be quick. So you put that out, like, there will be 2 or 3 companies, reporting like, in the same time frame, same day. So you have to be doing that, like, and then around 8:30, there will be an earnings call. So then, management discusses the quarter. You can ask Q&A. So we jump onto that call. Then that goes on for an hour. We attend like 2 or 3 different companies call. So that takes like, another 3-4 hours. Then we talk to management, one-on-one after that, just to, get more granular, like level details, why this happened or that happened, which they might not want to talk in the public call, or, which it's not like worth their time talking during the, like a public call. So after that, everything happens. We then start writing a bigger note, where we provide more of our opinion, why this happened, what does this mean for the future, and we update our estimates for the companies, estimates for the companies. And so doing all this like takes around, let's say, around 15-16 hours of your day if you are having 3 or 4 companies reporting in one day, right? If you 1 or 2, yeah, it's like, it will take some time, but you can get off like, around 12-hour a day, like clock, I would say. So that's a busy day. The slow day will be, hey, it's like, let's say around end of summer, everyone is, outside. So there's not much happening in the market. Big companies also try to avoid doing something big during that time, because they know there's not much, many of the buy side clients are vacation, so they won't get much like coverage on that. So it's like, yeah, you have nothing going on. The only thing you can do over that time is work on a long-term project. And for ER, the one thing is like all the long-term projects are like, hey, you don't have to get it out tomorrow, or, you don't have a specific time frame. If you don't put it out, it's not end of the world. But the earlier you get out, it's better, right? So during those slow time, what we try to do is we try to work on those long-term projects. The example might be working on a new initiation report, right? If we start covering a new company, we put out a very detailed analysis, like 50-60 page analysis on, what the company is doing. So we work on that, or we try to brainstorm, different ideas, like, hey, what might be the key themes over the next year, or is there any opportunity in our sector where we can write on, where the clients find it interesting to, buy stock or something like that. So we try to brainstorm those ideas, but you don't have otherwise anything else to do. And you'll be wondering, hey, why I'm getting paid over here. But yeah, those are the days as well. And then there is like extreme, days is they are underpaying me, so it's like 2 extreme ends.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you work on weekends, or is it very much market out, or not market hours? ER is around the clock, but yeah, any weekend work?
I think it's like ER job, you can get away working, 50 hours a week or 60 hours a week, I will say. But if you want to quickly develop yourself into the sector, you will have to work, till late nights and over the weekends. Because when the market is open, there will be always something you have to do. Like, for example, a client will request something, so you have to provide them that. Or, there's like a press release, so you have to write a note on that. But if you really want to understand the companies in your coverage, you want to understand the industry, you are covering in a very deeper level, you have to do that when there is no noise around, no one is disturbing you, right? Like I specifically, if I'm learning something about a particular company, and every 5-10 minutes, someone bugs me, hey, can you please provide me or do this, then the quality of that research won't be that good. So I try to do all those, work which is not necessary for the short term, right? Like you're not going to get fired if you don't do that. But in the long term, after 2-3 years, hey, if you haven't done that, you won't have like, that edge compared to other associates, and then you'll be like, hey, I should have done it before. So I think over the weekends you can focus on that.
Number 10, how does ER different working in a smaller, let's say, boutique firm versus a big firm, let's say Big Five? I saw before you were at Echelon Wealth Partners. Now you're at TD Security, then obviously you did two terms at RBC Capital Markets.
Yeah, so I think there are like few differences, but again, like for ER, rather than what firm you're working for, your workflow so much depends on what analyst you're working for, because it's like every analyst is like its own franchise, right? Like, hey, yeah, you working under TD, but your analyst will have all the freedom to conduct his research in a way he wants to. He won't be told by someone, hey, you have to do this on a daily basis. So it's like much depends on your analyst. But overall, if we look at it generally, right, I think bigger firms, as people may assume, they have like more resources. Like, so we have resources to more industry databases, and then we can do cross team collaboration as well, right? Like we have research in US, so we can learn from them, or access their research and try to leverage that. While in a small firm, you will have like kind of limited resources. It's not like in a bad way, but just like it doesn't make sense for them to buy like a $50,000 a year subscription, a database, right? While for TD, they can afford that and it makes sense for them. So I think it's mostly in the terms of resources you have for doing your job.
Question number 11. What would you like to do 10 years from now? From what I got, you want to do something in public equities?
Yeah, that's the plan. Either sell side or buy side, we'll see. I don't want to, close down any of the avenue, but hey, if possible, want to go into a hedge fund or a long only fund dealing in public equities. That's the goal. And that's why I specifically chose, equity research, that, hey, I like covering public equities. Either it might be good as a sell side equity analyst, or if I get the perfect exit, I can probably move to US, go work in one of the hedge funds. So yeah, that's the plan, but we'll see how it goes. No one knows what happens in 10 years. So yeah.
Now there's so much talk about private equity, not just, it's always been, a very sought after exit, but just so many of the companies that we interact nowadays, people don't know that it's owned by private equity. So why public equity then instead of private?
I think what really excites me about public markets is, that daily to daily flow. Like, there's so much just going on. Yeah, you're buying a business when you're buying the stock, but at the same time, you have to deal with what's the valuation, and every day changes for a company. Like people will make a stupid call on something on a company, and then is like, hey, this stock is going 30% down today. Why it's going down? If there's an opportunity over there, I might look into it. Then tomorrow might be like, there's new news coming out, so you have to like analyze that and you can quickly react on it. On private side, it kind of takes time. You can't like instantly buy a company. Like tomorrow you like the company, you're like, hey, I'm going to buy this. You can't do that. On public side, you're like, you can like buy, you like the company, yeah, you can just like easily trade that. So that's one aspect. And then there's like, I think I was like, I came across this in one of the interviews, like you get paid well for other people's mistake, right? In public equities, like how do you get like generate alpha, or how do you generate excess return is like, when other people make stupid mistakes, right? So I think that's also one part which really kind of excites me, to, it's like a scorecard for me. If I can outperform everyone else, like in terms of returns, like, hey, I'm really happy, just saying that.
On the personal side, then, what would you like to do 10 years from now? I know we talked about professionally, but do you envision yourself like going back to India, living somewhere? Do you want to, I don't know, what sort of hobbies do you hope to have in the future?
Yeah, I'm actually having that self-reflection period right now, but it just especially came back from India like 15 days ago, just visited my parents. But I don't see myself in India, probably not in the near future, but probably not after 10 years as well. I like my life over here, the way things are working, right? In terms of hobbies, yeah, seeing myself, getting involved in sports, or start getting into cycling. I started getting into cycling when I was in Vancouver, but moved to Toronto and I had to stop because it was just like too much going on. But probably, yeah, I like a lot of outdoor activities. So getting to get involved, like planning to get involved in that more and more I can. But apart from that, no hobbies like planned. Okay, I want to be doing this after 10 years. I don't have anything planned as of now.
Do you still play cricket?
I used to play in Vancouver, not over here. It's just too much of time consuming sport, like 8 hours a day. And that's not something I can afford right now to keep.
Yeah, I played like cricket in elementary school just for fun. They were introducing it
Oh,
to
wow.
us. Pretty fun, but I heard that the games last very long. Is that true? And why is that true?
Exactly. I know. I don't know why it is true, but I know it's true. Like there are three formats of the game. One is like 5 days, like you play from 9 to 5, sleep, come back home, then
What?
it goes on 5 days. Then one is like for 8 hours or 9 hours, so basically whole day. And then like recently, over the past 10 or 15 years, they started like a shorter version, like a 4 hour game. So more and more people watch it. Otherwise, like no,
Shorter.
yeah.
That's not even that short.
Yeah, it's all about relative comparison. So, hey, yeah, comparing that, it's like a shorter version, but yeah, that's like it goes long.
Wow, wow. And are there different positions? Like, or does everyone rotate? Like, they're not batters, but what are they? Like the people that are actually hitting it? Like, does everyone get to hit it?
Yeah, so yeah, everyone hopefully, I mean, not hopefully, if everyone gets to hit it, it's kind of bad for your team generally. If two or three people only hit it, it's kind of they're playing well, and that's why they've been playing for like whole game. And then like while you're like throwing the ball, all the 11 people in the team has a role to do. So during that time everyone is playing, but while you're hitting the ball, your team is hitting the ball, there are only two people who actually is in the ground. The other are like sitting outside. It's like baseball. I mean, if you want to understand like in North American terms, yeah, it's only like few people while hitting the ball, but while throwing the ball everyone has to play a role, right?
But does everyone on the team get to bat in baseball terms? Because sometimes you have a designated hitter in baseball, or you have like some people don't hit at all.
Yeah, no. So we have like, specialists, like people will have like, okay, some people will be good at batting. So, okay, yeah, they will bat. But people who are not good, they are like good at throwing, they will also need to bat, like, if they have to.
Oh,
So it's not like, hey, yeah, you won't do this. All the 11 people can do whatever they want to, and all the 11 need to bat if necessary, basically, in a game.
got it. Got it. Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Because I guess that's different. Because in baseball, not everyone on the team has to bat. Like there are some people that just don't bat. But that's different in cricket. Like if necessary, if it's your turn and you went through the list, like you have to go up to bat.
Exactly, like you don't have any other option. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, sorry everybody for that cricket tangent, but I did enjoy it when I was in school, so I want to learn a little bit more as I had the opportunity. Question number 12. What advice would you give to students looking to break into ER without previous connections?
I will say the first thing is to connect to people. As soon as you figure out, you want to break into ER, it's I think ER is like kind of very small niche, and like it's not a growing industry, right? Like day by day, I think it's kind of like teams are getting smaller. Buy side is having like sell side, like buy side is having their own analysts, so less and less value of the sell side research, I would say. But I think it's still a great field to be in, and if you want to get into it without prior connections, I think it's like prepare your technicals very well. First of all, learn, try to make like stock pitches. I think that's very important aspect. Like, hey, if you want to tell someone you want to work into sell side equity research, the best way to do is showing them your stock pitches. I think which kind of shows different things. Like first, you're good at like your technical skills, but at the other end, you're passionate about it because you're doing it on your own time, right? So I think like that's what I did. I did made a lot of stock pitches, got into like investment competition as well, like stock pitch competition. So yeah, connections is very important, and at the same time, you got to show your connections that, hey, this is the work I have done, and that's why I deserve this job.
Yeah, and stock pitches can be quite fun too. There's like prize money involved, and it's, you know, sometimes it is work, but when you have a good team too, it's kind of a fun little experience to do. Maybe you guys get a room and then you like work on a pitch or grind it out or practicing your presentation. It's a great opportunity overall.
Yeah, a lot of a great opportunity, and I think like it kind of, you know, if you actually do something, you will understand it better rather than, you know, just like reading about it, or, you know, like yeah, you can watch like hundreds of video on modeling, or, you know, watch like different 100 stock pitches, but until and unless you don't do it, you won't be good at it, right? So I think stock pitches, like competitions, give you that opportunity, and then it also, like, you know, helps you to get a feedback, right? There will be judges who will provide you the feedback, and so that kind of helps you, right? There will be judges who will provide you the feedback, and so that kind of helps you.
Yeah, and often the judges will also ask questions that are in depth, and maybe you think like, oh, I didn't think about that. You know, you do just get better with it over time. That's something I actually never did. I never did stock pitch, and then actually when I worked in equities at RBC, they asked for us to do stock pitches, and that was kind of, you know, a little bit scary for me. So I would recommend that those trying to get into ER or even S&T equities, like definitely try your hand on some stock pitches.
Exactly, right? Like it's like you get, okay, the one thing I bet they will ask in a equity research interview will be about a stock pitch. They will 100% ask about a stock pitch, and if you don't have it at that time, they'll be like, why do you want to work in public equities if you don't, like, you haven't analyzed any company, like, literally.
Well, thank you so much. I think I'll mark this as the end of the podcast. Our very first SFU guest, very first equity research guest. I'll have all the links below, so that's our LinkedIns if you want to reach out. And I think until then, thank you so much, and we'll see y'all in the next one. Bye, everyone.